Hospital Porter's pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panwo TV and happy Halloween, everyone. Yeah, it is Halloween. I wasn't originally going to make a video today. In fact, I was going to sort of like have a relaxing evening and I might just pop round to my daughter's house where she's having her Halloween party with her friends. I'm the kind of cool dad that it's okay to hang out with, luckily. But something's happened. Something has happened. Basically, that I've had to clear the entire front page. And hold the front page, clear the decks, everything. Right? So, and you may have heard about this. I'm sure a lot of you have because it's been doing the rounds of social media already. It's incredible. I got home from work today, and literally within 5 minutes of seeing the news, I was looking at, I knew I would have to make an emergency video. And that's what I wasn't going to make a video, like I said today. I was going to wait a couple of days, maybe finish off the graffiti one, but no, I'm going to have to make a video about this. And the title I'm using for this video is one you've also probably seen loads of times before, and I've seen them loads of times before. I've seen this title loads and loads of times before on all kinds of social media posts, and seethed at it because it's a title that almost signifies the kind of nonsense posts you get. You know the ones I'm talking about, the ones with the videos, with lots of sophisticated animation, rather stilted AI voices. And of course, the title, of course, it's very blunt, it's very simple, and it describes perfectly the situation we're in. 3i Atlas changes course. And this time, it's serious. Yeah, this is it. This is the reverse Oberth maneuver that I was talking about on Wednesday. Predicted by Avi Loeb. He said that this may well happen at perihelion, and we're at perihelion. It's happened. This is just fitting like a glove. It's incredible. He said if one of the signatures of this would be some kind of spacecraft, some kind of technological device, would be that it would carry out this reverse Oberth maneuver as it approached or was within perihelion. And when I saw this, I thought, blimey, what the hell happened? I spent all day at work, and I came across this literally 12 hours after the news broke, and so I spent 12 hours in complete ignorance of not knowing what this was all about. It was during the early hours of the morning this broke because it was Avi's blog, but this is based on something that was posted on the small body database at the JPL. But if you haven't seen this blog, then, well, there's been another one uploaded since, and not posted, not uploaded. Now, this is probably not going to be a very long video. I'll probably be making several videos about this subject. It still hasn't sunk in. I'm still processing the shock, basically, right now of what I've just discovered. But here we are. I'll use this version. It all kicked off just straight after. Well, to give you a bit of background, straight after I did my live stream on Wednesday, there's yesterday, this article was published, which was incredible enough. It was incredible enough. It discussed the SOHO images. Now, this is 3i Atlas rapidly brightens and gets bluer than the sun near perihelion, and we've got several pictures like this, which were taken by heliographs, solar observatories in space. It's because you may have heard the news that 3i Atlas is invisible during solar conjunction, and that's what I was told. I was told 3i Atlas cannot be seen at all by anybody for a month. That's what I was told. It was completely invisible for a month, and whatever it was doing was somewhere where we could never see it. That's what I was told. That's what you were told. That's what I looked up, I researched, and that's what everyone was saying. And then it was revealed that a number of astronomers had actually managed to gain I'll use this frame now, managed to gain some images of 3i Atlas using the GOES and Stereo and SOHO solar observatories. And they use this by stacking various frames. So they basically superimposed various plates on top of each other until they had a clear enough image of the part of the sky where they knew 3i Atlas was. And we know where 3i Atlas was because of We know where it was because we knew its trajectory, and they just focused on that trajectory until they got an image. And indeed, at the end of this video, you'll see a coronagraph, which is basically a picture of the solar corona. The sun is covered by a light shield so that it doesn't overwhelm the lens and overwhelm the camera with its incredible brightness. And you can see the corona, and you can see 3i Atlas, the track of 3i Atlas across there. This was always meant to be just estimated. In fact, I said as much, didn't I, in the live stream on Wednesday? I said I thought Dobsonian power really was confused and he hadn't really seen 3i Atlas, because all the research up to that point was telling me that 3i Atlas is invisible. Now it turns out you can actually see it with the right equipment and the right conditions. And it appears that Dobsonian power, he had his own solar coronagraph, and he managed to see it even from the Earth's surface. He managed to maybe see something. Certainly from space it is visible. And so this news story broke about 3i Atlas turning blue, and which is crazy because this is like the second major color change. It turned green at one point. Now it's turned blue. There's no explanation for this because a new image of 3i Atlas prior to perihelion. I won't go into this in detail because basically this has now been upstaged by more recent news. But this is where Avi talks about the strange case of 3i Atlas very suddenly brightening into a very extreme level. Now it's been through there's been several cycles where it has brightened. To begin with, it was much brighter than we expected, as I explained on Wednesday. But there's been periods where it's got much, much brighter, even off the brightness prediction that it was expected to have. Now you can pause and read this if you want. But it says the reason for 3i Atlas rapid brightening exceeds the rate of most Oort clouds. The appearance of 3i Atlas as bluer than the sun is very surprising, because dust is expected to redden in the scattered sunlight, and the surface of the object is expected to be an order of magnitude colder than the 5,800 degree Kelvin at the photosphere of the sun, resulting in it has a redder color than the sun. We must therefore add the bluer color at perihelion as a ninth anomaly, another one, right? So this is the picture I chose for the title. It's an image from the Punch constellation of satellites, co-added to the stack of all the images from a filter centered around a wavelength. And it says there. So that was weird enough. And so I was pondering over this, wondering, why 3i has got brighter. Why is it suddenly a much brighter object than it was? Then I got home and saw this absolutely astonishing article here. First evidence for a non-gravitational acceleration of 3i Atlas at the perihelion. Now, I thought this was maybe a joke. I thought that someone had hacked Avi's account and they put in something fake. Because it does happen, doesn't it? This sort of thing does happen, unfortunately. I'm just going clicking off my notes. There were lots. I mean, you know how much nonsense posts there are. And by the way, I forgot to mention last night the solar flares that have been hitting 3i Atlas from the coronal mass ejections on the far side of the sun, which I mentioned last night actually on Hapanmo Radio. If you listen to that on my space weather report, I don't believe those were caused by 3i Atlas. Some people have said, well, it's an etheric interaction between the spirit and I've been remote viewing 3i Atlas, and this etheric blast of energy between the sun and the entire solar system has been created. I mean, I don't believe all that. We're in the solar maximum. You're going to get solar flares. Now, could those solar flares have caused 3i Atlas to brighten like that? Unlikely, considering similar solar flares have already struck it a few weeks earlier. But that was something that I was also pondering at the time, and I thought this is another piece of nonsense posting, and it's first evidence for a non-gravitational acceleration of 3i Atlas at perihelion. Obviously, Avi's been hacked. Some of these idiot trolls have managed to infiltrate his Medium account, and they've started posting fake. Documents, probably written by AI, that are similar to the Earth exists ones. Probably not real. And a bit like do you remember those AI pictures? There's been some AI videos of Brian Cox circulating. as if this world, there's already too many Brian Coxes in this world. One of them's enough. And now we have, like, he's been cloned in artificial intelligence, so we have that obnoxious tosser all over the place. And the thing is, one of my friends went a bit nuts about this because she's a big Cox fan, and I just said, look, this is not him. This is not him. Oh, but he's changed his mind about 3i Atlas. He's saying it's real. And I said, this is an AI image. It's a very good one. I wouldn't tell. It's only because he was saying stuff I know he doesn't believe that I knew it was AI. But anyway, there was that nonsense as well. And I thought, this is something similar. Someone has infiltrated Avi's social media, and they've started putting up crap in his name. But no, it's true. It's real. It's real. First evidence of a non-gravitational acceleration of 3i Atlas at perihelion. It's actually in the, I think I saw, where was it? The Galileo project. Where did I see it? Because he tweeted about it somewhere. Where was it? Q&A 3. Oh, that's the Q&A 3i Atlas at perihelion acid test. Yeah, where was it? I saw he tweeted about it somewhere. He's tweeted about it. Anyway, and it just says, and we'll go through this. This is, again, the stack of 134 images from Punch's AWF-13 satellite of 3i, taken through the solar cloud. No one I didn't think was possible. And it's almost really, it's really incredibly, as always, he tends to understate the most interesting and incredible news stories that he breaks. I was expecting to see another picture of him playing football again, like last time. He says, by the date of its perihelion, 3i Atlas displayed the first evidence of a non-gravitational acceleration. And here is the source, if it'll appear. This isn't some fringe, this is some fringe kind of like weird location. This is the small body database lookup at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which is like the center of space and astronomy. And this is giving it its full name, C2025N1 Atlas, which is its alternative name to 3i Atlas. And the C stands for comet, because they've convinced themselves it's a comet. And yes, as Avi said, it's accessed by. It was filed by Davide Farinocchia, another bloody Scotsman, a navigation engineer at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, and it gives him a bit of a background. He received his PhD in mathematics from, appropriately, the Galileo Galilei School of Graduate Studies at the University of Pisa, Italy. He probably had the graduation ceremony at the top of the Leaning Tower, and they had to go like that, to stop him falling off. That's appropriate, the Galileo Galilei thing. And it says here, and it gives a few details here. The non-gravitational acceleration was measured at the perihelion distance of 1.36 times the Earth-Sun separation, AU. So it's further away. As I think I overestimated. I said 1.7. It's actually 1.3 something. 203 million kilometers. So this is not a sun grazer. And comets do actually exhibit non-gravitational acceleration of a different type. Usually when they're very close to the sun. Inside, like Comet Ison that was inside the orbit of Mercury. That actually. But there's several differences that I'll go into. And it says here, it had two components in the orbital plane of 3i Atlas: a radial acceleration away from the sun of 135 kilometers, 9 times 10 to the power of -7 AU per day squared. That's the acceleration. That's how much faster it's going. So, and a transverse acceleration relative to the sun's direction of 60 kilometers, 4 times 10 to the power of -AU per day squared. Now, I don't know what it means by the radial acceleration. Means distance from the sun. The transverse means relative to the sun's direction, as it says here, 60 kilometers per day squared. Okay, so that doesn't sound. It sounds like quite a lot. It's actually nothing. It's not a lot compared to, for example, Oumuamua, which was accelerated a lot more, and indeed our own spacecraft. A Saturn V or space shuttle taken off from the Earth exhibits acceleration many times that. But still, considering it's not supposed to be any kind of spaceship, this is remarkable. Now, this transverse acceleration, I'm not exactly sure what it actually means in terms of it's just relative to the sun's direction. And that could mean that it's slowing down relative to the sun. That's what it could mean. Now, it gets speculative here, because Avi says, if 3i Atlas is propelled by the rocket effect of ejected gas, which is how our own spacecraft are moved, then momentum conservation implies that the object would lose half its mass over a characteristic timescale equal to the ejection speed divided by the measured non-gravitational acceleration. In other words, this is it's a calculation of fuel expenditure. That's what Avi's saying. Assuming that it has the same propulsion system as our own spacecraft. Sorry about the noise. There's someone having a Halloween party next door. For a thermal ejection speed of a few hundred meters per second, the evaporation half-life of 3i Atlas is 6 months, which means half of it will be gone within 6 months, based on the calculation of what we just heard. This implies that assuming we know its mass is a minimum of 33 billion tons. This implies that over the month it takes 3i Atlas to cross a spatial scale of order, its perihelion separation from the sun, 3i Atlas would lose about 1/10 of its mass. Such a massive mass loss should be detectable in the form of a large plume of gas surrounding 3i Atlas during the upcoming months of November and December 2025, which means after re-emergence later next month, or indeed maybe early December, this should be detectable. Now, there's a few problems with that. Firstly, this is based on the assumption that it is a rocket. It moves, its propulsion system is similar to our own spacecraft. Now, for many reasons, not least ufological reasons and supposition based on the simple engineering and science of interstellar travel, speculatively, even our own interstellar rockets, our own interstellar craft, it's likely that this propulsion system is radically different. So, but also you've got to ask the question that if this is simply mass loss, indeed the skeptics are going to try and like dump it, they're going to try and hoax their way around this by saying, well, that's what it is. That's all it is that's causing it. There's several reasons for disputing that, which I'll go into. And one of those is that this is the first time 3i has exhibited any NGA. I mean, I said this on previous videos. Indeed, this was a major part of Avi's suspicion that this might actually be artificial because of its size. Because even despite the outgassing, and it was outgassing quite considerably, quite early on. I mean, even before it crossed the ice line, as it's said. So out before 5 astronomical units, the orbit of Jupiter, stuff like that, it was outgassing. This outgassing had no effect at all on its velocity, none. Its trajectory and speed remained the same, which is again completely strange. And then, so as Angry Astronaut said, and so it's moving steady as a rock like that, without any deviation at all, as if it's on railway tracks. And suddenly it gets closer to the sun, and not that. Remember, it's not very close to the sun. This is not a sun grazer. It's only about like less than 5% closer to the sun now than it was on Mars Day. And then suddenly, like, takes off and goes off like that, shoots off. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense at all. So that's one of the enigmas of this. So I don't be surprised if you don't see this mass loss after re-emergence. Although we should know more about where it's going by then, because there could be the acceleration may speed up, or it might slow down. It may steady out again onto a new trajectory. We don't know. We don't know what it's going to do now. What we do know is we can observe it in the solar conjunction, and this is what it's doing. It's possible this was not the intention of the pilots and designers of this craft when they decided to travel to the solar system. I've said many times that it seems that they are avoiding our observation, and possibly they underestimated us, and they thought they'd be hidden, and they're not. The ESA's Juicy carries on here. The ESA's JUICE spacecraft. Can you see? I'll just show you this. Here we go. The ESA's JUICE spacecraft would be the first to detect this large mass loss in the first week of November. So, in other words, next week. Later on, the 19th of December 2025, 3i Atlas will arrive closest to the Earth at a separation of 269 million kilometers, when hundreds of ground-based telescopes, as well as the Hubble and Webb space telescopes, will have the best opportunity to observe it. Yeah. So they can't keep this secret forever, whatever it is. Given that data, it should be clear if 3i Atlas lost a tenth of its mass through sublimation of volatile ices when it was heated by intense sunlight at perihelion. Yeah. Again, and based on the assumption that this is being propelled by normal means. Massive evaporation of 3i Atlas might explain its unusual brightening, as reported in a new paper, based on observations of 3i Atlas from these solar instruments during the months of September and October. The data shows a rapid rise in the brightness of 3i, scaling inversely with distance from the sun to the power of minus 7.5. Okay, so again, there's been several phases of massive brightening of 3i Atlas, definitely. But let's have a look at this paper, see what it looks like. Oh, it's 7 pages long. I think this is very technical. I won't be able to have time to go through this now. But this is, I recognise a couple of these names. Quincheng Zhang, I recognise, who's appeared on these documents before. But again, again, as Avi's explained, this is still very anomalous. The lighting of 3i Atlas remains anomalous. You've got to ask the question about, why, it could be something to do with the chemistry of it, or maybe this is an internal light source. I think it goes into this later anyway. Alternatively, let me go back to this view. You see, because if that happens, if you see a huge cloud of material around 3i, you may be able to say that's a tenth of its mass. In other words, the skeptics may be able to clutch at that straw and say, there you are. It's because of natural cometary action this acceleration took place. I don't believe that it does, because of the extreme nature and direction, the very deliberate direction of it. But they will try that. But if there's no cloud around it, if the JUICE mission doesn't detect anything. By the way, I wouldn't hold your breath for any data from the JUICE mission. They're already saying they're not going to publish anything before like February, because they have to process it and edit it and test it and etc. and have meetings about it and discuss it. This does happen a lot with science, unfortunately. But I have a feeling, I'd like to even take a bet that, so what do you reckon that the ESA will suffer its own little shutdown next week, just like NASA did, eh? You won't say, oh, sorry, we couldn't get the pictures because we had to have this shutdown. Sorry, we can't show you close-up images of this object. And Avi says here, alternatively, the non-gravitational acceleration might be the technological signature of an internal engine. This might also explain the report on 3i Atlas getting bluer than the sun. There's another paper here which I won't link to, there's a link which I won't look at. It's probably similar. For a natural comet, this blue color is very surprising. Dust is expected to redden the scattered sunlight, and the surface of 3i Atlas is expected to be the magnitude of 20 times colder than the 5,800 degree Kelvin at the photosphere of the sun, resulting in it having a redder color than the sun. The blue appearance at perihelion is the 9th anomaly in the list of unexpected properties of 3i Atlas, compiled most recently, and there's a link to his own article. I think it's time to push it a little bit up the Loeb scale, don't you reckon? I mean, if it's changing course and this turning blue, that's 2 extra anomalies, and the changing course one is a big one, isn't it? That's a biggie. And he carries on, it could potentially be explained by a hot engine or source of artificial light. And as we've said on previous videos, and Avi has said on previous articles, there does seem to be some evidence to suggest that the object is not just reflecting the sunlight, it is actually luminous in itself from the nucleus. We would know more if we could actually get an idea of how big the nucleus is. Its current estimates are between 5.6 and 46 kilometers in diameter, which is pretty wild, isn't it? In other words, it's guesswork. But the high-rise image should be able to tell us, because it has a 40 kilometer per pixel resolution at that range, and we'll be able to know how big, at least have some idea how big the nucleus is. But NASA won't show us the pictures. He says, however, it might instead be a signature of ionized carbon monoxide for a natural comment. Yeah, but then that doesn't explain the other problems. And he says the reported level of non-gravitational acceleration corresponds to a modest spatial deviation of order 10 times the radius of the Earth over a period of a month. So that sounds like a lot. And indeed, if you look at the background I've chosen here, I'll just show it to you. This here, you see the Atlas going along there, and it turns very, very sharply to the right there. That is an exaggeration. That's a gross exaggeration of what's actually happening here. The actual acceleration on this scale would not actually be visible off the trajectory on this particular scale. But in a sense, it doesn't matter. It's not how big the acceleration is; it's what causes it. That's the key point. It's what the cause is. Even if it was a millionth of what we're looking at here, if it could be proved it was caused by NGA, different from what normal comets experience, then our case would be made. So at the moment, the current acceleration is insufficient to bring 3I Atlas significantly closer to any solar system planet from its original gravitational path. I said where I say at the moment, that's not what Avi wrote. That's me adding it, because it is insufficient unless that acceleration increases. The rate of acceleration accelerates. And he says here, this brings us to an anecdote from another event that took place today. As director of Harvard's Institute for Theory and Computation, I lead every Thursday a luncheon attended by over 100 astrophysicists. I bet he's popular with them. Oh, do you remember how one of his Harvard colleagues was treated? I'm talking about Dr. John Mack. I remember how Max said he used to walk into the refectory to have dinner, and everyone used to get up and walk out because they didn't want to be associated with him because he investigated alien abduction. Yeah. And people wonder why scientists don't speak out. It's because of dickheads who treat people like that. And he says here, the event features four presentations on the latest advances in astrophysics. One of today's presentations focused on the discrepancy between the current expansion rate of the universe and the value expected for it based on the cosmic microwave background. The relic radiation from the hot, dense matter in the first 400,000 years of cosmic history after the Big Bang. It appears very difficult to explain this anomaly in the data in terms of an elegant theoretical model. At the conclusion of the presentation, which demonstrated beyond any statistical uncertainty that the discrepancy is real, I pointed out to all the young theorists in the audience, it is a bad professional practice for theoretical astrophysicists to conclude that the data must be wrong just because they do not have a theoretical explanation for it. Needless to say, the same lesson applies to the anomalies of 3I Atlas. There's been some good comments on here. I mean, I've put some. There's been some. How many comments? 121 comments on here. Some of them are really good. I mean, there's been some really great ones on here. I don't have time to go through them all. I can show you my own, which is the best, of course. But this blog, not a vlog. It's getting very, very. It's getting very popular now. He's getting loads of. I did actually get into a couple of discussions with some of these people. Oh, Sean Rash has commented. The guy who does UFO used to do and he says, "Yeah, I know this guy because he used to do. He's the one who wrote that unidentified aerial phenomena song, and he used to do Witness Citizen. Doesn't anymore. Was hoping you'd write after you mentioned this on News Nation. Thanks. Not enough movement to show intent, I suppose, but it's still very interesting. Yeah, good old Sean. He's cool. I like Sean. He's cool. And there's loads of others here." So there's a couple of people who have been skeptical, but I think the skeptics are going to have a tough one. I mean, they will find a way out. I mean, if it landed on the White House lawn, they would say it was Joe Biden's mobility scooter gone missing. Here we go. I say there's nothing in the mainstream media news about this right now, but that will soon change if this discovery is confirmed, and it will indeed. And I say here, holy excrement! This is exactly what the professor predicted might happen at perihelion. And I say, as for the JUICE mission, my hopes aren't high. Anyone want to bet that the ESA will also suffer some kind of shutdown? Which, of course, I've already talked to you about. Now, that was really interesting. And then now, just recently, another one has been published. Avi has then said here, afterthoughts on the non-gravitational acceleration of 3i Atlas. Now this came up 17 hours ago from now, so we're talking roughly like, say, early hours of the morning when I was in bed, and I didn't see it when I got up for work. And then this one came out just 1 hour ago. So this is breaking news, hot off the press, this one. Afterthoughts on the non-gravitational acceleration of 3i Atlas at perihelion. And he says, yesterday's report on a non-gravitational acceleration of 3i Atlas near perihelion, and he apparently, according to Sean, he mentioned this on News Nation before then, stems from data obtained by the Atacama Large Millimeter Array. All right, so this was actually not, this was actually previously, this is actually a Earth-based telescope, and this data must have been gathered long before, which indicated that 3i Atlas was 4 arc-seconds away in right ascension from where it was supposed to be on October the 29th, 2025, if its trajectory was directed by gravity. So this one can actually see, so this is a ground-based observatory. It's based on the Earth's surface. It's not a space observatory up in space, and it's called the ALMA Observatory. The Atacama Large Military Array, ALMA, right. This website is a bit slow. Oh, all right, so this website doesn't work. But it obviously saw this close to perihelion, so it seems that this is visible from the ground. So like Dobsonian array, sorry, Dobsonian power, you can actually, if you get the right equipment, you would actually see it. And someone put a comment on the previous article saying, I've just gone and bought myself one of these telescopes. It cost me $149 because I want to see what Dobsonian power saw, so they can watch it themselves. I've got a feeling these solar heliographs are going to be selling like hotcakes. And as soon as I heard about the results, I used momentum conservation to calculate that the nucleus of 3i Atlas should have lost at least 1/6 of its mass in order to accelerate that much as a result of cometary outgassing. And it says the calculation goes as follows. And this is, I don't need to go into details on this because it's kind of a technical, and it's sort of what he repeated earlier on in the previous article. And indeed, it's based on the assumption that this craft is propelled the way our own spacecraft are propelled, basically the ejection of mass through rockets, etc. And again, he repeats it must have lost 1/6 of its mass during this time. The mass loss rate measured by the Webb telescope of 150 kilograms per second did not yield detectable non-gravitational acceleration in the 5 months prior to October 2025. Yeah. So what? That's strange. This led me to conclude that the mass of 3i Atlas is at least 33 billion tons. That means that the dense cloud around it should carry at least 5.5 billion tons. So that's 1/6. However, we don't know the size of the nucleus, as I've explained before, and so has Avi. This implies we should detect a massive cloud around 3i Atlas in November and December if the non-gravitational acceleration resulted from cometary evaporation. Well, if it doesn't, right, then if it does, well, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's cometary evaporation any more than it used to. And if it doesn't, then you've got a problem on your hands if you're a skeptic. On the 19th of December 2025, 3i Atlas will arrive at its closest to Earth at a separation of 269 million kilometers, when hundreds of ground-based telescopes, as well as the Hubble and Webb space telescopes, will have the best opportunity to observe it. Between November the 27th and January 2026, 3i Atlas will be monitored by the International Asteroid Warning Network, YAON, campaign, as we talked about that on Wednesday. If the extensive YAON data will not reveal a massive cloud of gas around 3i Atlas, then the cometary evaporation would not constitute a natural explanation for its non-gravitational acceleration. The thing is that what the skeptics will probably say is, well, it's invisible gas then. I mean, they did this with Oumuamua, didn't they? When Oumuamua didn't outgas at all, it obviously wasn't a comet. When it started accelerating, and indeed the velocity change was far greater, this NGA was far greater than what we see now with 3i Atlas, the skeptics just said, oh, well, it must be an invisible gas then. It must be hydrogen or something that doesn't show up. They'll find some way around it. As I've explained in my skeptic talks, the skeptic ability to fool themselves as well as others is incredible. The clown's day off fallacy, the imagination that they have is amazing. If we do not observe a massive cloud of gas around 3I Atlas in December, then the reported non-gravitational acceleration near perihelion might be regarded as a technological signature of a propulsion system. A non-detection of an accompanying gas cloud will bring the sensation of déjà vu. Yeah, and he mentions here the first interstellar object, 1I Oumuamua, exhibited non-gravitational acceleration without showing any signs of gas or dust around it, even after deep observations by the Spitzer Space Telescope. This led comet experts to define 1I Oumuamua as a dark comet, namely a comet which does not show a visible tail. All right, so he's now making the same point that I just did. Given that the tail is the defining signature of a comet, the notion of a dark comet is an oxymoron. A spacecraft with a propulsion system could show a non-gravitational acceleration without cometary evaporation. It could be classified as a comet by comet experts as a dark comet, in the same way that a cave dweller will classify a cell phone as a rare rock. All right. A few reporters asked me today about the strong statements made by the science popularizer Brian Cox, who argued forcibly that 3I Atlas is definitely a natural comet. I explained that Brian Cox did not write a single scientific paper about 3I Atlas. He acts as a science popularizer rather than a researcher who is engaged with the related science concerning 3I Atlas. Well, you know what I think of Professor Brian Cox. You know that I consider him a total community guidelines, don't you? Rather than engage in sweeping statements. Oh, he carries on here. In comparison, I wrote 11 scientific papers in recent months about 3I. Rather than engaging in sweeping statements, Brian should be challenged to explain the 9 anomalies associated with 3I Atlas, with the 8 anomalies compiled here, and the 9th being its unprecedented recent brightening while being bluer than the sun. Scientific truth is not decided by popularity contests, by attention to data, especially when it is anomalous. And that's the end of Avi's article here. The thing is, according to pop science, truth is not decided by data. It's decided by shiny white teeth and silky, effeminate black hair and a high-pitched voice. Unfortunately, that's how it works. As I'm sure he's feigning naivety here. So, guys, that's it. I think. Let's have a look at my notes. Basically, can natural outgassing cause what we've seen here? I mean, thing is, there have been other comets that have exhibited NGA, 67P. I can't remember say the rest of it. Ison, and many other. Ison was the sun grazer. 67P was the one where they landed that craft on it, and there was that horrible anti-male, rant by the feminists. The thing is, the amount of NGA these comets, these real, what the comets we know are comets actually exhibited, was a fraction of what we observe with 3I Atlas. Even though at the moment its acceleration is quite modest compared to what it would need, for example, if it wanted to enter into the gravity well of the solar system, and therefore to the point where it could change direction towards the Earth. If that acceleration, that gravitational, that NGA acceleration might change. If so, you'll hear another video from me very soon. Those comets, though, firstly, the outgassing produced NGA that was a fraction of what we see with 3I. I mean, the maximum, in fact, Angry Astronaut put a list of them up, and he said that the most extreme one was comet Ison, which was a sun grazer, and it actually disintegrated near the sun as well. It went inside the orbit of Mercury, and its NGA was just 1% of what we see with 3I. And that is the next biggest example here. If you assume 3I Atlas is a comet, then you have it's exhibiting NGA, which is literally 100 times what we've ever seen before. Not only that, but it seems to be in a steady direction. Now, as I explained previously, comet outgassing produces NGA, but the NGA tends to be quite chaotic. So, for example, as the comet rotates, the jets of the jets of outgassing will face in a different direction and therefore push the comet into a different direction. As a result, they very often tumble chaotically like a Catherine wheel firework that's come off its pivots. And they just spin around on the, you've seen these things spinning around on the ground. It's quite dangerous when that happens, actually. They tend to be a bit like that. Sometimes there is an aggregate movement in a certain direction over time, but as you've just, it's never as great as the point you see with 3i Atlas. It's never that big. So this is going to take some explaining if you want to believe that 3i is a natural object. It's going to take a lot of explaining. If it's a natural object, we're looking at some process that has never even been conceived of in science before. Now, I'm not going to completely shut the door on that. I'm not going to say, oh, it's definitely a spaceship now. I'm not going to say it's definitely a spaceship now, because there is possibly some process we're not aware of that has yet to be discovered by science that is at work in that comet. But we know it rotates. It rotates every 16 hours. Its brightness levels don't alter much, so it's not long and thin like a Oumuamua. But it does exhibit some brightness levels which indicate rotation. But so far, I mean, there's been no indication that this rotation is matching like the rates of acceleration, which is what you would see. That's not been ascertained yet. You've got to ask yourself why, despite massive outgassing previously, that it actually exhibited a suspicious absence of NGA. And why this NGA suddenly become very extreme. Why is that? Again, if it's a natural object, what process is at work here that we're looking at now? What process could possibly produce this? Is it not more likely that this is some kind of technological device? Is it I'm just going through my notes here. Is it not possible we're looking at some kind of technological device? I think, even though it's not 100% certain here, and I'm sure Steve Mumbling will be in the chat. He'll be the first to comment to say, "Well, Ben, why are you 100% sure it's a spaceship? Absolute rubbish! It's a steaming pile." I'm sure he'll be saying that right now, as literally probably before he's even watched this far into the video. But I have to disappoint Steve and tell him that I am not 100% sure it's a spaceship. However, I am a lot more sure now than I was yesterday. And so is Avi. In fact, I suspect that his next announcement will be that he's putting it up on the Loeb scale. It's currently still 4 on the Loeb scale, but he may be putting it up a notch or 2. I hope so. Anyway. Okay, guys. So that's all I can find at the moment. I'm just going to look through the news, because so far this has not been mentioned in the mainstream news. Not a single mention of it in the mainstream news. So I'll show you. This is the news page. I put in 3i Atlas and click news. I need to refresh this actually, just because that might have changed. 23 hours ago, 1 day ago, 2 days, 1 day, 1 hour ago. Oh, well. Something has slightly. We got the brightening. We got the rapid brightening and things like this. We now have the New York Post, and I'm guessing this is not Stephen Greenstreet. Let's have a look. So yeah, possible alien spacecraft 3i Atlas makes unusual shift while hurtling towards the sun. Okay, so that's probably that's a kind of title that even I would think of as too extreme. But well, let's have a look at this, shall we? Again, I'm going to claim fair use on this, like I always do. But will this play? I don't know. We're probably going to see. Oh, we got an ad. Okay. You can expect there's going to be a lot more news stories than on this matter. If this discovery is confirmed, you're going to see an awful lot more about this. I promise you. It's published 31st of October, so it's published today, and he says it will come to Mars within a week. This is an old video. From ages ago. Sorry, guys. And it just says here, this is it. This is interesting here. It flew too close to the sun. It says here. Well, it didn't fly too close to the sun. It's actually not very close to the sun at all. It's only a tiny little bit closer than it was when it went past Mars. Manhattan size. We don't know how big it is exactly. 3i Atlas has allegedly executed an unusual maneuver while approaching the sun earlier this week, fueling theories that it could be an extraterrestrial spacecraft. And he talks about Avi's blog post. where he cites the JPL, saying, in which he claims that the first evidence of non-gravitational acceleration by a celestial body. It reportedly displayed the said behavior while approaching its closest point to the solar star in a phenomenon known as perihelion. Loeb noted that while most comets get a slight boost when their ice turns to gas and spouts out like a jet, an event known as the rocket effect, 3I Atlas was showing way more zip than expected during its approach. Meanwhile, the JPL readings showed that the so-called comet, oh good, they're calling it a so-called comet now, that's more like it, followed two bizarre seeming trajectories, one that pulled it away from the sun and died. Loeb claims that the non-gravitational acceleration might be the technological signature of an internal engine, which also might explain Atlas's bizarre change in pigment, turning blue while nearing the solar system's light source. Atlas has reportedly been glowing much brighter and bluer than a typical as it reached perihelion. This stands in sharp contrast to most comets, which turn red during their solar visits because their surface is so cold that they absorb blue light and bounce back mostly red, much like how cold metal glows red when heated. Loeb speculates that the blue hue could be a signature of ionized carbon monoxide or a hot engine, although he noted that it could also be an indication that 3I Atlas is burning off a large amount of ice during its approach. The non-gravitational acceleration could be the result of cometary evaporation or technological propulsion. Well, as I said earlier, it's more likely to be the latter, even if, because we're assuming it's propulsion system. Loeb has called these latest readings the ninth anomaly showcased by 3I Atlas, which is the third known interstellar object to enter our solar system. Other characteristics that seem to defy comet behavior, including an antitail, a jet of particles that points towards the sun instead of away from it, as is typical, and the fact that the entity was flying suspiciously close to Jupiter, Venus, and Mars. I'm glad they call it an entity. According to Loeb, this seemed to suggest that Atlas could be a potentially hostile alien probe. Potentially hostile, but we don't know its intention. That was set to conduct reconnaissance on the Earth. Right. When it comes to intentionality, when it comes to alien spacecraft and intentionality, as I've said earlier, we already have millions of alien craft interacting with us already. What difference does one more make? I'm not going to lose any sleep over this. I don't think that was by Stephen Greenstreet. I was just joking. I do wonder. I'm always wondering what the skeptics will think about this. Brian Cox was putting all his shit up on Twitter, and I was like, I was going to do it, but somebody else did it, saying they put a link. This was written yesterday, and they included a link to Avi's blog, and they said, Brian, your tweet hasn't aged well, has it? As I said, I think Brian Cox will retire if. He's too up his own arse to admit he was wrong about anything. As for Stephen Greenstreet, that certain individual who happens to share a hairdresser with a certain mid-20th century leader of a certain Central European nation, I think he'll probably eat humble pie and he'll change his mind. Okay, guys. That's all I can really deal with right now. We've got the first news story in the mainstream media, live and exclusive, that's just come out since I've been making this video. There'll be more. I've got a feeling I'll be making another video about this very soon, and I'll get back on my normal schedule basically when I can. In the meantime, thank you for watching Hapanwo TV. Thank you for watching this emergency video that I've decided to upload just literally straight away as soon as I got home from work. Hospital Porters, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order.